Unlocking the Mind of John Locke, Key Insights and Fascinating Facts. John Locke's journey began in the quaint village of Rington, Somerset, England, on a late summer day in 1632. His birth into an era of burgeoning intellectual curiosity set the stage for what would become a monumental life in philosophy and political thought. Widely hailed as the father of liberalism, Locke's profound contributions to political philosophy carved out new pathways for thinking about freedom and governance. His ideas would go on to lay the foundational principles for liberal democracy, influencing countless generations. Central to Locke's intellectual odyssey was his revolutionary theory of mind, which challenged the very fabric of identity and self-conception. By suggesting that personal identity was a product of continuous consciousness, he paved the way for modern explorations into the nature of the self and consciousness. Locke's academic pursuits took him to Christ Church, Oxford, where he embarked on a journey in medicine. However, his insatiable curiosity and sharp intellect saw him transcend disciplinary boundaries, eventually establishing him as a pivotal figure in the realm of philosophy. With the publication of An Essay Concerning Human Understanding in 1689, Locke audaciously critiqued the prevailing notion of innate ideas. Proposing instead that all knowledge is derived from sensory experience, he laid the cornerstone for the theory of empiricism, challenging centuries of philosophical thought. John Locke revolutionized the way we perceive knowledge with his empiricism theory, asserting that all understanding stems from sensory experience. This radical viewpoint challenged the prevailing belief in innate ideas, suggesting that our minds are shaped by the world around us rather than pre-existing concepts. Locke's perspective on human cognition extended into his political philosophies, advocating for the separation of church and state. He argued that religious beliefs should not influence governmental decisions, ensuring that governance remains a secular affair. This idea was groundbreaking, emphasizing the importance of individual conscience in matters of faith and politics. His influence on the social contract theory reshaped political thought. Locke suggested that governments are formed by the consent of the governed, a concept that laid the groundwork for modern democracy. This theory underscored the idea that authority must originate from the collective agreement of society, not from divine right or hereditary succession. Locke's notions of natural rights to life, liberty, and property became foundational principles in the American Declaration of Independence. He posited that these rights are inherent and inalienable, obliging governments to protect them. This idea has since been central to the ethos of liberal democracies worldwide. Moreover, Locke believed in the people's right to overthrow a government that fails to safeguard their rights. This revolutionary idea provided a moral justification for rebellion against unjust rulers, influencing countless movements for independence and democratic governance across the globe. Locke's legacy in political philosophy continues to inspire the quest for freedom and justice. John Locke, a luminary in the realm of philosophy, placed immense value on education, seeing it as a cornerstone for both personal development and societal advancement. He argued that knowledge not only empowers individuals but also serves as the bedrock of a prosperous and enlightened society. Locke's advocacy for education underscored his belief in its role in cultivating informed and responsible citizens. In his seminal work, Two Treatises of Government, Locke dismantled the age-old doctrine of the divine right of kings, championing instead the principles of parliamentary democracy. His writings argued for a governance system rooted in the consent of the governed, laying the groundwork for modern democratic thought. Locke's bold rejection of absolute monarchy paved the way for the embrace of more equitable forms of governance. Locke's intellectual contributions extended to the theory of the separation of powers, an idea that would later become a pivotal element in the framing of the U.S. Constitution. By advocating for a balanced distribution of governmental powers, Locke sought to safeguard liberty and prevent the abuses that stem from concentrated authority. His ideas on this matter have enduringly influenced the structure of democratic governments. On economic theories, Locke was particularly influential with his labor theory of property. He posited that property rights derive from the exertion of labor upon resources, a concept that fundamentally challenged existing notions of property and ownership. Locke's economic thoughts provided a philosophical justification for individual property rights, emphasizing the intrinsic link between labor and value. Locke's profound impact on the Enlightenment era was undeniable, as his philosophies resonated with and influenced other great thinkers like Voltaire and Rousseau. His advocacy for reason, tolerance, and liberty not only shaped philosophical discourse but also laid the intellectual foundations for the Enlightenment. Locke's work sparked a wave of critical thinking and inquiry that challenged traditional dogmas and inspired a new age of enlightenment. John Locke, revered for his advocacy for liberty, harbored complex and seemingly contradictory views on slavery. Despite championing the natural rights of life, liberty, and property, Locke's involvement in drafting the fundamental constitutions of Carolina paints a starkly different picture, one that unambiguously encouraged the institution of slavery. This dichotomy in Locke's philosophy raises questions about the universality of his principles of freedom. As a proponent of the social contract, Locke envisioned a government powered by the consent of the governed. This revolutionary idea underscored the belief that authority must stem from the collective agreement of society's members, ensuring that governance aligns with the populace's will and interest. Locke's concept reshaped political thought, emphasizing that legitimacy originates from the people's approval. Locke's forward-thinking views on religious tolerance were notably progressive for his time, advocating for the separation of church and state. He argued that faith should be a personal choice, free from governmental coercion, laying the groundwork for modern secular governance models. This stance not only championed individual liberty but also paved the way for peaceful coexistence among diverse religious beliefs. On October 28, 1704, Locke's death marked the end of a remarkable life dedicated to the pursuit of knowledge and the advancement of human rights. However, the legacy of his ideas continued to shape the intellectual landscape of the Enlightenment and beyond. Locke's concepts of governance, personal identity, and liberty remain pivotal in contemporary discussions on democracy and human rights. Locke's notion of the tabula rasa challenged centuries-old beliefs about innate knowledge. By asserting that the mind at birth is a blank slate, he laid the foundation for modern understanding of learning and development. This idea not only revolutionized epistemology but also emphasized the importance of education and experience in shaping the individual. John Locke's revolutionary idea of the tabula rasa posited that the human mind at birth is a blank slate, free from pre-existing ideas. This theory challenged centuries of philosophical thought and suggested that all knowledge comes from experience and sensory input, laying the groundwork for empirical science and modern psychology. Locke's extensive philosophical work set the stage for future debates in epistemology and political philosophy. By arguing that knowledge is not innate but acquired through experience, he opened new avenues for understanding human cognition and the nature of reality. His ideas became foundational in the development of Enlightenment thinking and scientific methodology. As a practicing physician, Locke's medical background significantly influenced his philosophical inquiries. He applied empirical methods common in science to philosophy, insisting that just as medicine seeks to understand the body, philosophy should seek to understand the mind through observation and evidence. This approach enriched his theories on identity, knowledge, and government. Locke's friendship with Sir Isaac Newton symbolized the convergence of science and philosophy during the Enlightenment. Their mutual interests in understanding the natural world and human society fostered a rich exchange of ideas. This relationship exemplified the era's spirit, where intellectual collaboration could lead to groundbreaking insights across disciplines. His innovative approach to education emphasized practical learning over rote memorization, advocating for a method that respected the individual's natural curiosity and capacity for understanding. Locke believed education should develop critical thinking and reasoned judgment, qualities essential for participating in a free and democratic society. His educational theories continue to influence pedagogical practices today. John Locke's exile in the Netherlands proved to be a turning point in his intellectual journey. This 5-year period was marked by intense scholarly activity, during which Locke penned some of his seminal works. Far from his homeland, Locke was immersed in an environment that nurtured his evolving ideas on liberty, government, and education, laying the foundational stones for what would become his lasting legacy. Locke's ideas on liberty and government, developed during his years in exile, had a profound impact on the Enlightenment across Europe. His advocacy for the separation of powers and the concept of the social contract resonated with contemporaries and future generations alike. This period of intellectual ferment contributed significantly to the spread of Enlightenment ideals, emphasizing reason, freedom, and democracy. One of Locke's most enduring contributions was his staunch belief in the importance of property rights. He argued that the primary role of government was to protect private property, a principle that would deeply influence liberal political philosophy. This idea underscored the intrinsic link between individual rights and economic freedom, shaping the structure of modern democratic societies. Through his extensive correspondence, diaries, and essays, John Locke offered a window into the workings of his mind and the complexities of his time. These personal writings not only reveal the depth of his philosophical inquiries but also provide a nuanced understanding of the 17th century socio-political landscape. Locke's reflections continue to offer insights into the development of liberal thought. Locke's ideas on tolerance and rationality played a pivotal role in the American and French revolutions, embodying the spirit of change that defined the era. His advocacy for religious tolerance and the separation of church and state were revolutionary, challenging the status quo and laying the groundwork for a more inclusive and rational public discourse. His influence on these transformative events underscores the far-reaching impact of his thought on the course of history. John Locke was a trailblazer in championing the rights of individuals against the overarching power of governments. His advocacy laid the foundational principles of liberal democracy, emphasizing that governance should primarily serve to safeguard the freedom and rights of its citizens. Locke's vision was revolutionary, asserting that the legitimacy of government stems from the consent of the governed, thereby placing the power and rights of the individual at the heart of political philosophy. Locke's criticism of absolute power extended to proposing a system of checks and balances, a concept that has become a cornerstone of modern democratic governance. By advocating for a balanced distribution of power within government structures, Locke aimed to prevent any single entity from gaining unchecked authority. This idea of governance, designed to protect individual rights and prevent tyranny, has profoundly influenced the constitutional frameworks of numerous democratic nations. In his philosophical inquiries, Locke also ventured into the realm of language and communication, exploring how these elements are fundamental to human understanding and society. He recognized language as the tool through which individuals express their thoughts, negotiate their relationships, and construct their societies. This exploration further contributed to the Enlightenment's broader quest for knowledge, reason, and progress. Locke's enduring legacy in liberal political philosophy is celebrated for its profound impact on education and psychology, in addition to politics. He championed a learning approach that favored practical knowledge and critical thinking over rote memorization, advocating for an educational system that prepares individuals to think independently and contribute meaningfully to society. His thoughts on the human mind and its development continue to influence contemporary educational theories and practices. The influence of John Locke's ideas is evident in the writings of American founding fathers like Jefferson and Madison, who drew heavily from his theories on liberty, government, and property rights. Locke's vision for a society based on the principles of natural rights, government by consent, and the separation of powers has left an indelible mark on the fabric of modern democratic thought, making his contributions invaluable to the development of liberal democracy around the world. John Locke's profound impact on the American founding fathers is undeniable. Figures like Jefferson and Madison drew heavily from his ideas about government and natural rights. His principles of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness became foundational to the United States Constitution, embedding Locke's legacy in the fabric of American democracy. Locke's challenge to traditional power structures laid a cornerstone for modern democratic ideals. By advocating for the rights of the individual and the concept of government as a servant to its people, he sparked a shift in political thought. His influence helped pave the way for the emergence of parliamentary democracy and the emphasis on individual freedoms. His reflections on human nature and the inherent rights of individuals have maintained their relevance across centuries. Locke's understanding of personal identity and the self formed the basis for modern conceptions of identity, influencing both philosophical thought and practical policies on human rights and civil liberties. Locke's pivotal role in the transition from medieval to modern Western thought marks him as a key figure in the Enlightenment. His contributions to epistemology, political philosophy, and education bridged the gap between ancient doctrines and the new wave of rational and empirical inquiry that characterized the Enlightenment era. Throughout history, John Locke has remained one of the most influential thinkers, his works continuing to inspire debate and discussion. His comprehensive contributions to philosophy, politics, and education have cemented his status as a cornerstone of liberal democracy and a pioneer in the advocacy for the rights and freedoms of individuals.